Doing this thing live. This is PT Podcast. Hey, before we get started, do you want to say that there is something pretty cool we've got cooking online at ptpintcast.com. You guys kept asking like for pint glasses, for t-shirts, the whole nine. And I was like making them like one-off and like selling them out of my apartment. It's like going to the post office and like, I got to ship these 11 t-shirts. So we set up like a legit store online. I just got my I Drink and I Know Things, which is my favorite line from Game of Thrones. I drink and I know things. It's a tumbler. I don't know how it works, people, but it keeps your hot hot and your cold cold. That's just what it does. There's beer in this one, so we want it to stay cold. So check out the store now at ptpintcast.com. Also want to say thanks to our friends at cbdrxforyou.com. That is your CBD store. Covering the ABCs of CBD. You've got questions about CBD. A lot of your patients might be taking this for wellness, for sleep, for stress. It's over the counter a lot of places. Do you know exactly how this is affecting your patients? Again, the ABCs of CBD at cbdrxforyou.com. Get the scoop there. We're also giving away some free pint glasses from your CBD store. You can sign up to win that. No cost or anything like that. Sign up to win. We're giving away a set monthly. Do that online at that website again, ptpintcast.com. Got a great show for you tonight. We're talking about a returning guest. Always like when we have returning guests, plus a fellow alum of Marymount University, as you see the logo here. Talking about concierge physical therapy. You've probably heard it for a while now. I remember when I first heard it in PT school a couple years ago, they were saying that won't stick around. We're still talking about it. It's here. It's a model. Maybe you've heard about it enough. We're going to dig into this just a little bit more and educate you on what it is, and maybe it's a good fit for you. So let's start the show. Go. Love that intro. Coming in hot. Welcome to PT Podcast, a podcast that saves physical therapists from missing out on amazing insight, remarkable ideas, and motivational stories in the world of physical therapy. Online at ptpintcast.com. That's the socials, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, the whole nine. Also the website, ptpintcast.com. Make sure you subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. If you're watching live, and I see a bunch of you watching live, drop down below. Who are you? Just where are you geographically? Tell us where you're watching if you're watching live. If you're watching that replay, same thing. This is me from the past talking to you in the present. Where are you watching from? It's creepy how this whole time thing works. Mentioned at the top of the show, we're talking about concierge physical therapy as a model. We've got an expert on it. This is a PT and CEO of Concierge Physical Therapy, which is a cash-based practice and provides a variety of physical therapy services right to your door. Or maybe you're providing those services to your patients' doors. Let's welcome fellow Marymount University alum physical therapist, Brian Williams. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jimmy. Greetings. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. When we were scheduling this a while ago, I think we had to push it back a little bit. And I was like, hey, when can we get you on the show? And I was like, hey, we got something open early May. And I was like, 5-5 is a very special number. So happy Cinco de Mayo. First question is always the hardest. What are we drinking? I know what I'm drinking. What do you?
Yeah, quite honestly, just water right now. Right. Once we're done, I'm going to have a Don Julio and lime juice. But
doing the good stuff. I have just got into these. Sierra Nevada is doing a summer break, and after, I don't need to talk about the last year everybody's had. I'm just ready for like warm weather, doing something outside safely, of course, but just give me the summer break. So cheers to you. I'm going to take a little sip in my I Drink and I Know Things mug. As we are watching the live streamers. Hello. We've got Jesse from Albuquerque. I'm going to take a left turn in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we were just about a year ago at the National Student Conclave. So, Brian, we had you on the show a little while ago. It was actually before we hit record. It was a year ago that we actually had you, which seems like
it was January, February, and I think the show hit like the Monday after the COVID reality set in, and it was it was crazy.
All right. So we touched on a bunch of different things in Concierge PT. It's still going strong. This is what you do. You're almost 100% just CEO role, business role now with Concierge Physical Therapist, right?
Yeah, I'm nearly 100% out of this clinically. I cherry pick some clients that live, a couple miles from my house here in Dallas, Texas. But the majority of what I'm doing day to day is, I look at myself as the quarterback of what's going on here. Just calling plays, changing concepts, tweaking systems that are in place, and just trying to maximize what we have already established.
All right, so let's walk us through the model again, just for people who are saying hi for the first time. Yeah. Let's do concierge physical therapy, and then let's talk about your organization. So let's just talk about like the term that a lot of people throw around a lot. Concierge physical therapy, what is it?
Yeah, so the term concierge connotes a certain concept of just like an extra level of service. Face-to-face, high level, high quality service. In the healthcare world, that term has been used traditionally with a sort of membership-based, subscription-based platform where you're paying in whatever $1,500 a month, and then you get so many sessions, and then sort of preferred access to a therapist or a healthcare professional. To my knowledge, there's actually no physical therapy clinics operating with that subscription-based model. There might be, but to my knowledge, there aren't. We don't operate that way. We are strictly a pay per appointment situation. But we take that concierge term, very seriously, to the extent of not only do we deliver services in home, in gyms, in a client's office. We actually had a therapist out in Portland, Oregon, doing treatments in someone's RV. Just random places that in PT school you never think of, like, oh, I'm going to have to do a PT session in someone's RV. But that's the type of stuff we offer. And beyond the convenience of it, it's just. Like I said earlier, it's a higher level of service, and really sort of, thinking differently about where physical therapy and physical therapists enter into the healthcare paradigm. Certainly with direct access as prolific as it is nowadays, we're frontline healthcare providers at this point. Right. Physicians certainly have traditionally been that role, but PTs are certainly stepped up, and we are definitely frontline healthcare providers.
It really talks about what we have on this show and on social media, talk about focusing on the value for the end user, patient, client, customer, whatever you want to talk about is, if you're doing concierge physical therapy in an RV, I need you to come to me. I need you to do that. If you're a, Wall Street lady working at Wall Street and you're working 80-hour weeks and you're like, I've got an issue, but I can't leave, I can come to you. So it really, it makes me think of that. Remember that show on USA, Royal Pains, where it followed that concierge doctor? I think it was on in the Hamptons, Long Island. But it really focuses yes, I can provide the care. I'm really going to focus around you. It's kind of just flipping the model and saying, instead of you coming to me and you wait in line and you sit in that chair and wait for you to be called, it's I come to you, and people want that. People desire that. So they will come towards that and say, okay, I have several choices. I pick that.
Yeah, it's the Amazon Uber effect. People want things delivered to them, and in some regards, money is a secondary consideration. It's all about that obsession over client satisfaction, the client experience, and that's getting back to what I do day to day. It's just analyzing every touch point that we have. What is it like if someone wants to come into our business? How does that look from the outside, from that first email, that first phone call, to follow-ups, to everything?
Let's talk about it from a clinician standpoint. They're nodding along, right? Because you mentioned you're the quarterback calling the plays. Well, there needs to be some people across the country near RVs or near Wall Street, wherever they may be, providing the care. So when a clinician says, okay, Brian, you got me. I'm at your website. I'm thinking about doing this. And they say, what's my day like? Or how does this work for me? Do I sit? Do I wait? Am I, similar to an Uber driver? I'm waiting for it to be matched. Am I swiping left and right? How does this work from a clinician perspective?
Yeah. Well, first, let me talk about therapists contacting, a PT business owner to work for them. Since COVID, even before COVID, we get a tremendous amount of unsolicited people, wanting to work for us. And if I have any one bit of advice for a new grad or any PT out there looking to work in this model, you have to craft some sort of introduction letter that, you can copy and paste it and tailor it more specifically to the business you're approaching. But, the stuff we get, it's really disappointing a lot of times, to be honest with you. Oh, yeah. We'll get emails that are say, hey, I've always wanted to do concierge PT. How much do you guys pay?
Yeah.
I got 20 years of experience. I could do this, it just very short, not a lot of detail. And with this model, with any service business, which we're in,
right,
it's about relationships. You have to build relationships. And if you can't get past that first step with an email, phone call, whatever, it's just not going to work. So
red flag. You're saying red flag right from the start.
Immediately goes to the archive box. So I have absolutely, turned away or not responded to well-qualified clinicians just based on their introduction to me, and have hired, newer PTs or someone with less credentials just because they took the time to, write a 3 or 4 paragraph explanation about why they're interested in this and how it would work for them. So
can I tell you a quick story how I got my first job in radio?
Yeah.
Was sending out resumes, and probably I was thinking along the lines of what you were talking about, which is like everything just kind of looks like similar and nothing really stands out. And I was looking at radio, which is like, hey, it's a field of creative people and you got to out create the creatives. So I created a magazine because I wanted to show off that I had like design skills, writing skills, broadcasting. Created a fake magazine, wrote a cover article about myself in the third person, made a bunch of ads, turned the ads into radio commercials and put them on a CD, slid that in the magazine, put the magazine in a box, wrapped the box like a birthday present and mailed it to the program director because I was thinking, he's going to get 1 million boxes and packages. Why is he going to open this one first? So I put a bow on it. And I got a call saying, is this Jimmy McKay? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I got your thing. Can you come in for a call? But you're what you're doing is you're highlighting. Listen, if you're not putting any effort into contacting me, how are you going to be contacting our patients? You're obviously not putting them first. I mean, you need to build a relationship as you started with.
Absolutely. And Jimmy, that's next level stuff right there, by the way.
Well, since I was unemployed for 2 months, I had a lot of time to think about it. My mom and my dad were like, "You gonna get a job soon? Because if you don't get a job in radio, you got to get a job somewhere." And I was like, "I want to do the radio thing. You got to figure out a way through the side door." So that's really good advice. Which is, I understand if you're a new grad, if you're looking for a position, yes, quantity is important, right? Put out as many hooks, but like focus on the ones you really want because you really want it to be a good fit for you too. So maybe put your best foot forward. Think about it.
Oh yeah. And certainly, I think a lot of times people in all professions, especially ours in some regards, we put experience probably a little bit too high on the list. I mean, I have learned that experience is often overrated. If you're experienced in a bad system, in a flawed way of thinking, I mean, what does that give me? That's nothing. So we want people. What's that?
It hasn't told you like really anything qualitative.
Yeah, we want people that can think outside the box. That have that, and we're actually seeing this more with newer grads. Traditionally when we're looking to hire, our sort of sweet spot is in that 2 to 3 year post grad range where someone's had some clinical experience, hopefully a good mentor. But at the same time, within 6 months, 9 months at that clinic, the light's going off in their head saying, wait a second, I can't do this for 20 years. Yeah. And that's really the thought process that brought me to starting this business was, I think I was 3 or 4 years out of PT school and working in a relatively, good situation, making decent money in Washington, D.C. But I, staring at the same 4 walls all day and a stack of notes for lunch. And I was like, how long can I really do this? Well, so that's why I started the business.
Maybe we already just helped Jessie because you're dropping some good letters there for her cover letters. Place to put your best foot forward as a really good example. Different pitches. Does it have to be an email or a cover letter? No, I don't know. Think how you could get into the mind of an owner or a fellow clinician. So when people come and work with you, you found a good fit. They had a good cover letter or a good first response, and they get in there. What's life like as a concierge physical therapist working with you?
Yeah, it varies greatly. I mean, it depends on what that therapist is looking for. If they're looking for sort of a side hustle, part-time thing, that certainly is something that we can accommodate. We essentially build out web pages for each therapist within each new city or location. Our SEO stuff, our Google ads are really strong. We have a ton of organic hits. If you were to look at any of our locations and just type in whatever at-home physical therapy Cleveland, we're going to come up pretty high on that list, if not first organically. And yes, we do pay for some Google ads, which I never thought I would do when I started this business. But because of that, we get a tremendous amount of inquiries through our website and phone calls that generate through the website. In some of our locations, we've been more established. We're going on 11 years in total now, based out of Washington, D.C. So that's still our best and most established location. But In other locations where we've been for a number of years, other groups know about us, other therapy groups know about us, certainly physicians and MD groups know about us, so they'll refer to us just by knowing what the quality we do and how we work. So essentially, we'll get a referral in. We will sort of go through our initial process of figuring out, is this an actual viable person that wants to work with us as a client? And you'd be surprised that, when you have a forward-facing, service business like we are, you get just ridiculous stuff coming through the website.
You're smirking, which means you got a couple things that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one that comes to mind is when we launched our pelvic floor program. We were getting just really obscene stuff coming to us through the website about people, all sort of issues, sexual issues, and it was clear that this was a joke to them. Yeah, at this point, it's pretty low, in occurrence. I'd say, 1 to 5 a week is probably what we're getting. But once you go through that sort of, internal filtration of like, is this an actual client? Is this a case that we can handle in this situation? Because we're not set up to handle, certainly if someone needs a ton of equipment or they need some sort of standing, some things we can't handle basically. Right. What we do is we go through our process of verifying with that person, that client, is this, you understand this is a cash-based situation. We get an idea of where they live, let's say in Chicago. Where in Chicago do you live? Is that an area that we can service? And then we go to our therapists on roster in those locations, and we figure out who would be the best fit for them based on location, based on diagnosis, based on schedule. And then we coordinate the evaluation for that therapist. Once the therapist shows up, does the evaluation, they base their assessment, their frequency and duration on their assessment. Do I want to see this person twice a week, once a month? What really is the situation here? And then they schedule out the follow-up appointments. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff going on, in terms of we verify all insurances at this point ahead of time. So a prospective client is going to understand, hey, I'm going to potentially get 50% of this fee back to me after I file for insurance. Or, worst case scenario, they have a huge deductible or they don't have insurance. So we are very transparent in that process of letting someone know that, this is going to cost you X amount of dollars per appointment. This is what you can expect, an estimation of what you can expect if you were to file for insurance. And we do help on the back end with claim submissions. So there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes outside of the clinical work.
So you're taking the front desk and the website of a traditional clinic, and you're saying it doesn't necessarily need to be in the city that the patient or the clinician is at this moment. You're saying, listen, we know how to make sure we're known that we can provide this service. And by we, you're saying your staff of therapists who want to do this as much or as little in terms of like, is this a side thing? Is this an after hours? Is this a weekend thing? Or am I in an area where we're going to get a lot of requests like this? Am I in an area like a DC or an Arlington where you're going to see maybe more of this, a little more affluent? And this could be my entire roster. So you are, kind of in conjunction that front desk for that physical therapist, bringing them in, and then you get them to the right PT.
That's right. It's almost like a brokerage situation. We're trying to match a client with a therapist, like I said, based on diagnosis, location, and because of the way we hire, the types of therapists that we're looking for, again, really relationship-driven type therapists. Once that connection is made, and at this point, I think I mentioned this last time we talked. I'm pretty sure we're at least 50% psychologists, more than physical therapists. You get a connection with someone, you can certainly help them clinically. It doesn't have to be right away. And it doesn't matter if it's right away. If they like you, if you were able to help them and drop some knowledge on them, they're going to have you come back, without any questions.
This is behavior change. Good luck getting behavior change without a relationship built, right? I mean, even if you're kids, you got a relationship there. Clean your room. You got to say it like 11 times, right? So if you want behavior change, that relationship is definitely gonna help. When people ask, because this happens a lot. I work at Fox Rehabilitation. That is considered outpatient physical therapy in the home for older adults. Mm-hmm. People say, well, you do home health. You're providing physical therapy in people's homes so that they have that word home. There's that key word. So concierge physical therapy and home health. When a clinician asks you that, what's your quick differentiator?
Yeah, well, honestly, the first couple years I was doing this, I spent half my time just explaining how it wasn't home health. That was the big thing, at this point, I just leave it as a simple statement of we bring the outpatient clinic to your house or your
Right.
home or your office, and I just leave it at that. And I think certainly therapists at this point, the whole mobile PT stuff has just gone crazy in the past couple of years. They get it, and I think it's really shown in clients understanding that it's an option for them. I haven't had to do it as much as I used to, but initially it was all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I graduated in 16. So I was in PT school 13 to 16. And I think like then, I mean, that's when I first got exposed to it. And it was like, oh, this is so, you can only do it in major cities and there can only be so many. And that's with anything, right? These cell phones aren't going to stick around. This internet thing's just a fad. It's a lot of things that you're like, well, there's no way it's not going to be there. And we're still talking about this. And I just think the more people are talking about this, like in our Facebook group online, people exchanging ideas and saying, well, I guess if enough people, I mean, we had a great comment on the show a while ago. A guy just picked up everything he had, moved to Vermont. He's like, I just want to be a snowboard PT. And I had him on and I was like, what gave you the permission to do that? He's like, I heard enough people on your show talk about it, about doing what they wanted to do. And I figured, why not? So there's enough people who have been hearing about Concierge PT and hearing from people who do this that I think of even the people who are now in the middle of the bell curve. If you want to get all researchy, shout out to Jason Craig for teaching research at Marymount. Now you get into the middle of the bell curve where enough people are going, those people on the right of the bell curve, they haven't failed yet. They're still doing and talking about this. So this is a thing. Yeah. So I think you're hitting kind of max capacity now.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, certainly, nowadays it's much easier for a new therapist or a therapist that wants to start their own business to try to do this. I mean, that said, it's still very difficult to turn it into a side job into a business is the hardest concept out there. I mean, it's one thing if it's a side hustle and I'm picking up clients, after work and on the weekends, and yeah, you can, make a couple $1,000s a month, whatever. But to turn it into a business, which is different than a job, right. A business, you're making money when you're not physically at work. Right. That was a huge step for me personally, and really. It happened when I started to remove myself clinically from the business and started to make it not about me, and not that I ever had this huge PT ego or thought that I was ever great of a therapist per se, but it became clear that, I was getting a lot of calls and emails maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, like, oh, I heard you're the guy I have to see. And I'm like, am I really the guy? I mean, I know I'm good, but there has to be other PTs out there that can come into this concept. And when you do that and you make it not about yourself and you remove yourself clinically, that's when the business just took off for me.
What are the difficult part? Is it because there is this left and right brain? Like you have to be doing enough. You mentioned SEO or taking time and making sure that this patient understands what you're actually providing, if it's right for them. It's hard. I mean, how do you divide your week into be doing both things really well, jumping back and forth from kind of a clinical brain to a business brain? It can kind of get hard, I imagine.
Yeah, and honestly, as you get older, the actual PT clinical work, certainly if you're a manually based therapist, you're doing a lot of physical things throughout the day working. It's draining mentally, physically. And then, the next day to think, oh, I'm going to, spend all this time, doing claim submissions or helping people understand insurance. It's really, it's a hard road to hoe if you're going to take that approach. So like I said, what took off for us was really me removing myself clinically from the business and devoting as much time as I could to, how do we take this to the next level? I think there's a lot of, misunderstanding about people, therapists thinking just because they're good clinicians, they get good outcomes, that they can start a business and become successful in that business. That's not the case. I think that's a really big misconception out there. Like I said earlier, it's certainly a high side hustle, an extra job for yourself. That's totally doable. But to turn it into a business is a completely different story.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of times people will see it. I wind up, I don't work in concierge physical therapy, but I work in podcasting and communications, and I will talk more people out of starting a podcast than into it, because I'll have this conversation. I'll make it about them, and I'll say, well, what do you want? What are your goals? I want this and this and this. And eventually a lot of people are like, I want to be on a podcast. I don't want to run one. I'm like, well, did you know we do this and we do this, and it takes a couple hours to do this? And they're like, oh, I don't like any of that. I'm like, oh, I do though. But it's good that you ask those questions, because when you get kind of like, when you get like 50% in, you're wading waist deep, you're like, I didn't want any of this. So it's good to ask those questions.
You got to ask them ahead of time, for sure.
You got to ask them ahead of time, because you're investing time and money into this. What makes it good? You mentioned making sure your cover letter and your first communication to like a business owner is always good, and that applies everywhere. What makes a good concierge physical therapist? Is there the couple qualities where you're like, boom, I met this person, I'm like, yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, it goes back to that cover letter. The big number one thing, in my opinion, if you want to be a successful physical therapist, any healthcare provider, it's communication. You have to communicate clearly. You have to communicate well. You have to communicate honestly. And sometimes you're going to tell people they don't want to hear, and you just got to put it to them straight and help them understand this is why the situation exists. And that, in my opinion, is the single most, important personality trait of any physical therapist that works for us. Certainly, like I said, any healthcare professional, that quote unquote bedside manner. Again, I'm not sure if we're 50% psychologists, sometimes maybe 80% other times, but if you're able to talk with someone, even as simply as explaining their medical situation, their orthopedic situation, on a, in a lay term, on an anatomical level, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I've had this knee problem for 10 years and no one has ever told me so clearly what you told me. Yeah. And right then, when I hear that, not only does that make me feel good as a person and a clinician, but I know that we basically have created a relationship that, it doesn't matter if their knee hurts next year or if they have a headache, they're going to call me or call us.
Yeah, it's relationship building. It's love moments like that. No one ever said it to me like that. I now understand it. I mean, that's the light bulb moment that teachers talk about when they see that person they're talking to or teaching gets it, and they're like, yeah, I lived that moment. That's great.
It makes me question a little bit. I always talk about the alphabet soup PTs have after their names at this point. The CSS and OC, all the credentials that we like to put out there for people to see. At the end of the day, clients, patients, they don't really care about that stuff. No. They want to have someone that listens to them and that can help them, and that's all they care about.
And that's not saying there was a social media discussion going on about that. That's not saying, hey, being a lifelong learner and continue education, we're not saying don't do those things.
Right.
We're saying make sure you focus on the important thing. When the line I love to use about communications, and I got a couple of them, but this one is the message that clearly communicates one thing is infinitely better than the message that fails to communicate 5 things.
Sure.
And when you give someone an alphabet soup of all this, what you've done is you've overloaded them cognitively, and now they don't understand anything. So yeah, I understood you showed them all your letters. Congratulations for your. Yeah. I'm gonna start calling it the peacock. You're just peacocking. You're putting all the letters behind you to make it look fancy, and look how good your plume is. Yeah, that is definitely something that people pay attention to. It either does this or it does this. It welcomes or it pushes them away. What's something I didn't ask? Is there anything I didn't ask that you'd want to get into or you want people to know?
I'm not really sure. I mean, this business has changed a lot for me personally and for the therapist working with us. It started out as a side hustle for myself. And, it's grown to, over $1 million a year revenue business. And
for you,
we've had, even last year, which, I think everyone had that oh shit moment somewhere in probably late March, early April.
Yeah.
I saw our revenue cut by 80% through April and May. And I was like, is my livelihood just, we had projected a huge year. Is my livelihood just completely gone? And what we ended up actually beating 2019 last year, because the rest of the year was so strong. We actually, late 2020 was just our best quarter ever. First quarter this year, our best quarter ever. So I think, again, if there's a lot of therapists out there that hear about this, that want to start it on their own, it's a lot harder than being a good therapist. You can't just have a couple people that think you're good and those are your core clients. You've got to have a ton of revenue cycles, revenue streams coming into you, 10, 12 different avenues of how people are finding you and how people are being referred to you and where that revenue stream is coming from. It has to be diversified. If you just have, 15, 20 people that like you and you think you can make a business out of that, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's good advice. Good to hear on the last year. That's really, really good to hear.
Oh, yeah.
I think that speaks highly of the way you structured your organization. And I think physical therapy as a whole, which is we provide a great service. Everybody sort of panicked in March, April, May. But then once people decided, like, listen, we're changing. I need to figure out how to get this thing that is valuable. If it wasn't valuable, nobody would have been fighting for it. Nobody would have been said, let's figure a way around this to get back to me having that physical therapist in my life any which way I can. So I think that speaks highly about people who position themselves well and communicate, and the profession as a whole.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Brian, are you ready for 3 questions? We're going to do 3 questions. Are you prepared?
All right. Let's do it.
We'll do 3 questions. All right. 3 questions brought to you by our friends at Fusion Medical Staffing. Find them online at fusionmedstaff.com. Leaders in travel physical therapy. If you're thinking like, hey, I don't know, I want to take this area of the country for a test drive, I say go back to your PT school days and say, like, it's like doing a clinical rotation. I want to go live in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't know. Take it for a 3-month test drive. Who knows? They've got job transparency as well. No more like 25 emails to find out like what is it? What's the pay? Like, just give me, I need to know these things. Let's just be transparent. Be transparent with me. They do that as well. So find them online again, fusionmedstaff.com. Brian, first question is a where question. You're in Dallas, but once we're free to move about the country safely, as Mike Chua says, hi, Mike. Love you, buddy. I'm going to be on your podcast pretty soon, Mike. Where do you want to go? Where's a place you've got to get to that you haven't been to in a while?
Well, I've been here recently, so it's Crested Butte, Colorado. I'm not sure if you know where it is, but I lived in Crested Butte for about a year after graduating college in like 2000. I know I'm dating myself right now, but and I hadn't been back since then until just after Christmas last year. I went with my wife and my kids, and it hadn't changed, which is exactly what I was hoping for. Just this gorgeous, gorgeous small ski town with incredible people. The mountain itself is gorgeous. It's where the very first X Games was done. Just a very vertical, tough skiing mountain. So real skiers. I think they allow snowboarders, but it's really a skier's paradise. And the town itself is just gorgeous.
Where is it? Really, like in Colorado? Like, what's it close to?
It is in like the South Central Basin. So basically, if you were to look, Colorado is basically a square. Yeah. If you were to put a pinpoint in the smack dab middle and maybe go south about 50 or 75 miles, it's right in that location.
I love little gems like that, little hidden gems like that.
Very difficult to get to.
Yeah, which makes it fun and special. And I love the fact that it hasn't changed, which is also nice. Second question is a what question. We see, if you're watching a live stream, watching the video, we see a lot of books behind you. But what's something you've read or watched or listened to, a book, a movie, something that you think the audience could get value from?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and like my free time is not mine. So, the thought of, and I joke about this with my wife, we say we need to take a trip together, like go to a beach and just sit on a beach and read and just sleep, nothing overly romantic, just basically recharge. So reading is not something that I'm doing a lot of currently. I did recently read a book about marketing called The Alchemist, which was really interesting, just trying to, again, get into people's heads and help me understand how people make decisions and why they make decisions. Very, very interesting read. I'm much more into podcasts. Again, in Dallas, I'm driving a lot, and I'm listening to anything related to crime series. Yeah. A lot of things that kind of get me out of business mode on my drive really help. I think it's the Wondery series. They've got a couple a couple podcasts that I'll listen to regularly.
Yeah. I'm gonna check out The Alchemist. You're not the first person who's mentioned that on the show. I'm gonna look into that one. Final question is a who question. It's about people. Who is someone the audience should know more about?
Yeah, from a PT perspective, and I think I mentioned these two guys last time I was with you. Jerry Durham on Instagram and Facebook. He just gets it, totally going back to that communication. His whole thing is wrapped up on the front desk and how the front desk is built, builds your business for success. It's not about the fancy equipment. It's not about what credentials you have. It's about, again, that communication between the front desk person and front desk staff and the clients. Totally understands what really prospective clients really thrive off of. The other is Tony Maritato, who does something called From Zero to Paid on Facebook and YouTube, which helps clinicians go through the whole Medicare enrollment process and understand, Medicare issues. I think he's helping a lot of therapists navigate Medicare Part B. I think traditionally therapists have always thought of Medicare as like the boogeyman out there. And that's unfortunate because, that's definitely our largest potential client pool. And also they actually aren't that difficult to deal with. The enrollment, I think, is a little daunting for people. But once you do it, half dozen times, it really kind of becomes automatic.
Two good guys. We've had Jerry on the show a number of times. Anthony's coming up on August 11th. We just booked him for the show. And Jerry, talking about being into podcasts, he's doing like a 12-day series right now with Best for the Patient is Best for Business. So he's essentially just dropping like an episode every day for like 12 days in a row. So if you're looking for something, Jerry is at Jerry_Durham, I believe. Yes, Jerry_Durham PT. Isn't that funny how we talk with underscores now? You didn't think we'd be doing that when we were in high school. I didn't think I'd be doing that. Last thing we do on the show, Brian, is called The Parting Shot. Doing the parting shot right now, brought to you by our friends at the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy. Find them online at orthopt.org. If you're looking for mentorship, a path to follow, if you're looking to level up your orthopedic game, the Academy of Orthopedic PT. I could stop there, but I digress. I will go on. They've got current concepts of orthopedic physical therapy. They're coming out with another update. This is volume 5. That is a perfect path, a guidepost, just a complete map to your OCS if you're thinking about doing that. If that's something you're thinking about, just go check it out. orthopt.org from our friends at the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy. All right, Brian, your parting shot is your mic drop moment, the last thing you want to leave with the audience. What do you got for them today?
Wow. I think I just want to talk about PT and social media for a second. I mean, there's a ton of physical therapists out there that are, in a sense, certainly they have PT degrees, but they're really content creators more than anything at this point. And I think, regular physical therapists who are still working clinically kind of get caught up in this need to produce, videos of themselves doing kettlebell swings and all sorts of exercises. And I'm not sure how beneficial that is for our profession, to be honest with you. I think there needs to be some maybe different thinking in the social media circles about how the profession can be presented through those channels. I just, I'm not a social media person, so maybe I'm just barking up the wrong tree here. But no more kettlebell swings. I've seen way too many of them.
I think we're all social media people. I think at this point, this is how we communicate. This is how we are social. And I did an Oxford debate not long ago where the prompt was, and I think we have a photo of it. There's the Oxford debate. That's me in the Breaking Bad outfit. And I think we have the picture of me. Oh yeah. When I won the damn thing, we jumped into the crowd. But the prompt there at that Oxford debate was #hazardous. That was my line, which is like, listen, this is a tool. Yes, it can produce good, but you should treat it like, a hammer can build you a house or, could hurt somebody. So it definitely is like, think before you post, right? I mean, and Gary Vaynerchuk is a good guy to follow. Where he's like, if you're doing it for the follows, like you're doing it for the wrong thing. Like you really need to be thoughtful about what you're putting out there.
Well, I think there's a lot of follow the leader in the posting that I see. You know, everyone's kind of doing the same thing. And I don't know if there's a playbook out there that they're following or something, but
I think the playbook is follow the leader, which is like, I mean, even Instagram has gone to a model of trying to not hide, but make it difficult to see how many likes a particular post gets, because that shouldn't be the driver. Because then we're making photocopies of photocopies, or you're doing it, you know, if, what do they say? If the end is the target, if the test is the target, if the test is the measure, you're not, what are you measuring anymore? If you're just doing really well to get likes, are you actually providing any value? So I think the line really is be thoughtful. What value are you providing?
Yeah. I like
leaving with the website, where can they reach out to send you a well-crafted cover letter they would like to communicate?
Yeah, conciergephysicaltherapist.com. There is an S at the end. There are about 25 of us now. And, you know, there is a link at the bottom in the footer there for join our team. Or you can email info@conciergephysicaltherapist.com. But, you know, definitely think before you reach out and put something together that explains who you are and why this would work.
Yeah, I love that. All right, fellow Marymount Saint, I'll be back on campus at Marymount doing their virtual graduation coming up next weekend. But good to catch up with you, Brian. Glad to hear your continued success, and can't wait to catch up again when you got some more therapists working with you.
Thank you. Have a good one, Tim.